was their intention to do something very provocative to stir fan backlash. They just didn't realize how big it would be, as the way I take it.
Yeah.
They didn't realize they were going to be that pissed. The creators of Captain America, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, Jewish men, created the character during World War II as a symbol to fight against Nazism. And now they've taken their creation of what he stood for and why they created him, and they completely bastardized it.
And on the rare instances we backtrack, we don't really, because everybody rejected Foul Cap the first time we did it and the second time we did it. And we brought back Captain America both times, but the one time when we brought him back, well, then we turned him into a Nazi.
Marvel are in a prolonged period of absolute creative downturn. Nothing's really hitting for them right now. And I think one of the major factors about this, Doc, is that Marvel can never admit when they're wrong. Even when they make an enormous mistake like Hydra Cap, for some reason, Marvel Comics and Tom Brevoort cannot say, yeah, that might have been a mistake.
No, they really can't. The Olympian level of contortion that they will go to in order to avoid admitting mistakes. I'm pretty sure that's a company that still doesn't admit that Heroes World was a bad idea. That's well over 30 years ago at this point. Nothing that they ever do is a bad idea. And this is the problem with idealists. They never think they made a mistake. They just think that they merely haven't had the opportunity to do enough of whatever it is to make it work. And that seems to be Tom Brevoort's approach to, well, just about everything. Remember, Marvel Rivals, nobody plays it because of the designs. They play it because of game mechanics. People don't still hate Spider-Man, the dissolution of the marriage. They just think that, I don't know, Peter hasn't banged enough new chicks. And apparently turning Captain America into a Nazi is also still not a bad idea. We just weren't patient enough.
And I think when you go over it and you kind of explain how this all happened, the initial reaction, even people that haven't read it, is why would they have ever done that? In a shocking twist, back in Captain America, Steve Rogers #1, released in 2016, writer Nick Spencer and artist Jesus Saez introduced a massive shakeup. Steve Rogers, the original Captain America, had secretly been a Hydra agent all along. This came after several years of Sam Wilson, the Falcon, carrying the shield while Steve was sidelined, having lost the super soldier serum and aged significantly. But in that now infamous final panel, after Rogers shoved Jack Flag out of an airplane, he turns and says the words no one ever expected, "Hail Hydra." It was a jaw-dropping moment that flipped everything fans knew about the character, and it launched an 18-month storyline that culminated in Secret Empire. The whole thing was greenlit by Marvel executive editor Tom Brevoort, who wanted to challenge readers' perceptions of Cap and his legacy. There used to be a time when Marvel could make a mistake like that, maybe not quite that big, but a big mistake, and then they would turn it back. You remember Clone Saga? The big reveal that Ben Reilly was the actual Spider-Man and Peter Parker was the clone. Terrible idea.
Yep.
Nobody liked it. Did they stick with that? Is Ben Reilly still the fucking Peter Parker? Or is he still the Spider-Man?
Nope. They realized how much people hated it. I am not getting bamboozled into the fact that the last 30 years that I've been reading Spider-Man, I've actually been just reading about a clone. They won't accept that. The readers aren't going to accept that level of a bamboozling, say that was good storytelling. They're going to go, oh, fuck you people, and stop reading. And that forces the publisher to backtrack. There's been a number of these cases over the years.
But there was a time when Marvel Comics could admit a mistake. This should have been able to foresee something like this, the reaction that they would get once they came up with the idea, and probably never greenlit it. But the fact that they went with it, there was a fan reaction, and it was absolutely explosive. The backlash hit almost immediately. Fans across the community accused Marvel of betraying everything Captain America stood for. Many saw the twist as tone deaf, especially in the political climate of the time. Looking back, Brevoort admitted they misjudged just how much heat it would generate. He said, if we were over concerned about bringing back Bucky, we were perhaps under concerned about the impact that this moment was going to have when it hit. And it wasn't just comic fans reacting. The outrage broke through to the mainstream, becoming part of the larger culture war discourse. Brevoort even revealed that he had to cancel a convention appearance after a police-assessed credible threat was made against him. How could they have actually been under concerned about the reaction to this? They didn't realize that going back and retconning, I don't know, 60 years of history of Captain America and everything that he stood for wasn't going to be greeted kindly?
It's almost like they get a really kind of twisted amusement out of it. And I know Tom mentions in there that it got into the overall culture war. Well, that was what it was. And it was very obvious on its face of bringing the culture war into the comics. So whenever the people that are involved in the culture war took fucking notice, what wasn't that your intention?
100% it was their intention. It was their intention to do something very provocative to stir fan backlash. They just didn't realize how big it would be, as the way I take it.
Yeah.
They didn't realize they were going to be that pissed.
Okay. I mean, they've been trying to get these little critical nodes and infrastructure of different, I guess, cultural touchstones and try to capture them and modify them, twist them, adopt them as their own. And that was an obvious attempt at trying to turn the idea of Captain America and those that believed like him and portray them as the obvious bad guy in pop culture fiction. You have to be really, really disingenuous to not notice it. And you'd have to be lying to say you didn't see that one coming.
It is bad on the level of the character, and the fans who had bought into the character and loved Captain America and stuck by him, and went there every Wednesday to support the book.
Yeah.
Just on that level, it's a fan betrayal, and it's a betrayal of the character. But it goes deeper than that. The creators of Captain America, Jack Kirby and Joe Simon, Jewish men, created the character during World War II as a symbol to fight against Nazism. And now they've taken their creation of what he stood for and why they created him, and they completely bastardized it. And now he's fighting on the side of the thing that he was supposed to be against all along. Really going against what the creators wanted and what he meant to them, which I think was the even bigger betrayal, really.
Yeah, and they won't admit it, but it's absolutely intentional because it's about taking away from others, and or trying to attack history.
But yeah, if you love America and you want to wave around the red, white, and blue, you are in fact secretly a Nazi.
It's more in the line of everything that happened before current year was bad. Our generation, this era is the start of the new. Every totalitarian, authoritarian regime has tried this, and they called it year zero in every case. It was an erasure of history, or if they even acknowledged that there was a history before today, it had to be done to portray it in the worst possible light.
And they do this stuff a lot. It would be like DC Comics going out there and retconning, Crime Alley to be Bruce Wayne killed his parents in the fucking alley. And then they wouldn't have expected people to be like, fuck that.
Or that Bruce Wayne's parents fucking deserved it and he should have gotten it too. They tried that one, at least to a certain extent, in the past with the Waynes were not good people and them dying in that alley. Oh, well, they've tried playing that card a couple of times and hinting at it. They've never gone full bore on it because they've just tested the waters. It's never gone over well. And at least I will give DC credit. There's one thing that really helps them with their lack of a spine and kind of weakness. They are absolutely not willing to just go gung-ho into a terrible fucking idea. They'll dip their toes in, realize that it's way too hot, and back off. Marvel dives head first, scalds the fuck out of themselves, and says everything's fine.
Despite the backlash and a noticeable drop in sales after Secret Empire, Brevoort stands by the decision. In a recent interview, he said, "I think there was a specific confluence of events outside of the comic book industry that resulted in that reaction getting so much traction." He added, "I wouldn't do any of it differently." Doubling down on the creative intent behind the story, Brevoort's defense of the arc has reignited debate about where the line is between bold storytelling and alienating your core audience. For him, the goal was to provoke conversation, even if it meant weathering one of the most controversial stretches in Captain America history. Kind of saying it wasn't totally our fault. It got caught up in the culture war. We didn't see that happening. And if that hadn't happened, nobody would care. I think they would have gotten just as visceral reaction if nobody outside of comic books ever talked about it. People in comic books still hated it. They still hate it to this day. And we still haven't fixed or actually gotten Captain America back to where he should be. The character is still floundering when it comes to sales, and he's on reboot after reboot after reboot.
Let's be perfectly honest here. It didn't get caught up in the culture war. It dove into the culture war. And when the culture war bit it back, it acts like, oh, well, it's everybody else's fault. This is the problem with that. I don't think there's a way that we can say, had it not gotten caught up in the culture war, because it intentionally got itself into the culture war. It dragged itself into it and shoved itself in the face of non-comics culture warriors out there on both sides. It jumped itself right into the middle of that arena that was already swinging baseball bats at each other. This is the same company that not, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, something like that, at Comics Pro, where David Gabriel got up and blamed the audience and the retailers for their DEI hero initiative, where they were basically replacing everybody with a margarine person. And they blamed the audience. They blamed the retailers. They said, well, all we heard was nobody wants these things. Not an acknowledgement that they made an error changing to them and shifting to it. No, they blamed the response. And that is their senior director of marketing, their VP of marketing. They are completely incapable of self-reflection and acknowledgement of errors. I don't know if they just don't do it publicly or if they don't even do it internally. With big corporations, coming out and making an admission of an error is sometimes against the corporate philosophy, but internally they're like, oh, fuck, that was a major mistake. We got to change. How do we change without admitting that it was a mistake in the first place? And they, bring in consultants and shit just because they want to maintain that level of deniability of the error. And maybe that's the case. I don't know. I'm not in their board meetings. But at the same time, from the outside, it absolutely screams, not only are we not going to admit it, we're going to double and triple down on it to make it work. And on the rare instances we backtrack, we don't really, because, everybody rejected Foul Cap. The first time we did it and the second time we did it. And we brought back Captain America both times. But the one time when we brought him back, well, then we turned him into a Nazi. And now we're not going to admit that was a mistake. They're still not going to admit that the Captain America running around in the comics right now is just a figment of Bucky's imagination. You refuse to give them what they actually say they want. You demand that the only way that you'll give them even close to what they want is if there's some different poison pill attached to it. And that is the problem with Marvel. Then they at least get the win of, we can still feed you fucking poison and you'll take it willingly.
If you like the full conversation of this, we did have to edit it down just a little bit for the YouTubes. It's up right now live on Think Critical Patreon, along with our review of Wonder Woman 22 this week, live right now on the Doc Unfiltered tier of Think Critical Patreon. There's a link in the video description. Hope to see you there very, very soon.